I'm Arlene Marks. This is the Israel Brief. You guys have a date with me every Monday to Thursday for your top stories making headlines from Israel. And let's check in with today's top stories. It is day 138 of Israel's war with Hamas. We don't forget how this war started on the 7th of October when thousands of Hamas terrorists infiltrated Israeli sovereign territory and raped, murdered, mutilated, tortured and kidnapped Israeli civilians. To date, we still have 134 hostages being held in the Gaza Strip in Hamas's terror tunnels. Many people around the world are calling for ceasefires. As I speak, there are votes in the British Parliament calling for a ceasefire in a resolution sponsored by the Scottish National Party. We see the marchers in the streets calling for a ceasefire, and there will be a ceasefire when Hamas surrenders and returns our hostages. We all want the fighting to stop, but it's time the world puts the burden of responsibility on Hamas. So let's take a look at the latest developments, and we go to the United Nations Security Council. Yesterday, the United States vetoed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire that was sponsored by Algeria. The ceasefire calls for an immediate, the resolution rather calls for an immediate ceasefire, increased humanitarian aid and the unconditional release of the hostages. The United States vetoed the resolution, saying that an immediate ceasefire, will not happen without a comprehensive negotiated settlement. I think we all can agree on that. We talk about a two-state solution. Well, you can't dictate one, and you can't enforce terms of a ceasefire in a war that Israel is fighting in defense of her citizens against an internationally recognized terror organization. Addressing the UN Security Council yesterday, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, said, "We all want a ceasefire." Of course, Israel wants a ceasefire, but called on countries to demand that of Hamas, and that Hamas says, as I just said moments ago, surrenders unconditionally, and that our hostages are returned home safe. We all want our soldiers to come home safely. They are our family members, our sons, the best of us, and we want them home safe. But we can only do this once we have dismantled Hamas. The United Kingdom abstained from the vote, and China criticized the United States for vetoing the vote. Staying with the United States, the State Department says they have stated quite categorically that there is no genocide happening in Gaza. People confuse the numbers with intention. And as we have repeatedly said here on the Israel Brief, the numbers of casualties from the Gaza Strip come from the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health that makes no distinction between combatants and civilians and is not independently verified. Staying in the Gaza Strip, the Qatari Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement yesterday saying that they had confirmation from Hamas that they were distributing medicines that had been arranged for the hostages through the families of hostages and French officials, and given to Hamas by Qatari officials to the hostages. This comes very coincidentally as Israeli Defense Force troops operating in the Al-Nasser hospital recovered medications with the names and photographs of hostages on them that had been discarded. Maybe now, with international pressure on them, they will actually distribute those medications and we will get final proof. President Herzog, addressing the Conference of Presidents of Major American Organizations yesterday, reiterated Israel's commitment to the freedom of religion and the status quo on the Temple Mount. This follows some attempts by members of the far-right parties in the Israeli government to call for restrictions during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which comes very, very soon. Ramadan traditionally has seen a significant uptick in violent acts and terror activity committed against Israeli civilians. And the president says, while Israel is very aware of extreme elements, we do protect the sanctity of the freedom of religion for all. And finally, the question everybody is asking is, where is Yahya Sinwar? Sinwar, the mastermind and the financier behind the October 7th massacre, is believed to be ill with pneumonia. This is according to unconfirmed reports coming from Hamas. Yesterday, Saudi newspaper Elaf published a report that Sinwar had escaped the Gaza Strip into Egypt via the Hamas terror tunnels. However, this has been categorically denied by Egypt, and Israeli officials say they have no intelligence that or any evidence that Sinwar has escaped the Strip. One thing that we have said is that Yahya Sinwar, we are coming for you alive or dead. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of the Israel Brief. Guys, please don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our YouTube channel at the Israel Brief. We're on Facebook at Lottel's site and on X at Lay of the Land 5. I'm Raylene Marks. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you again for our usual date tomorrow.